Hey, what's up, everybody? JayC here with another live stream, and we're starting things a little bit early. That wasn't too much of an inconvenience for folks. I don't know how long we'll go, at least an hour, maybe a little bit longer. But for today's focus, and I see, seeing in the comment section, you guys already started talking about Masters of the Universe and the new cartoon. So let's go on and dive in. First of all, let's see who's in the house. We've got Rainbow Wearer, Sarek73, Edward, King Kino, Jay the Grind. What's up, guys? Michael, Blake's in the house. So first of all, let me just address, since I saw this comment from Rainbow, uh, saying I was mocking people who didn't like or dismissive or mocked, which I would disagree with. So the only people I've dismissive about are those who hated the show before they even watched it. Going back weeks before we even saw a trailer, simply because of rumors that Tila was going to be the main character. Um, but if you watched the show and for whatever reason you didn't like it, I that's I'm not dismissive of that. I don't necessarily agree with that. I thought the show was great, but but just want to make sure everybody can hear me. But so I thought the show was good. But if you didn't like it after you watched it, that's totally fine. I'm not dismissive of that. Again, that doesn't mean I agree with you, but I'm not dismissive. But I am dismissive. It's the people who hadn't even watched it, and like I said, have been kind of just adamant on hating the show from day one, for whatever reason, that I was dismissive of. So just to clarify that, if you watched it and you didn't like it, then I respect your opinion. Again, I don't necessarily agree with it, and part of what we're going to talk about today is I'm going to share my feelings of why I liked it, and then listen to you guys who either liked it or didn't like it, and we'll have kind of an open discussion here. So no agendas on my part. I'm not here to tell you what to like and what not to like. I certainly have no uh, Kevin Smith. I'm not friends with Kevin Smith. I'm not even a huge Kevin Smith fan. I've only seen a few of his movies. I've actually never seen all of Clerks. I think I've seen all of Dogma, and that actually might be it. I liked him in the Die Hard movie. I actually thought he was actually kind of good in that one. And I've seen some of his things at conventions, which for me, as far as Kevin Smith goes, like I think he's funny for a little while, but then he kind of it's kind of the same shtick over and over again, so it kind of gets old and tiring. So it's not like I'm this huge Kevin Smith fan, but I really didn't. If I didn't see his name in the opening credits and didn't already know that he was involved with the show, it's not like I would have gone, "Oh my God, the show was written by Kevin Smith, wasn't it?" So let's see. That new Tila series was pretty good. A bit weird. So this is the all right. So I'm gonna just share my feelings on the show. So first of all, I did like it. There were a few things that at first, as I was watching it, I was like, this seems a little bit out of character, especially like in the first episode at the end. Oh, let me just warn, if you haven't seen the show, that we are going to be talking spoilers tonight. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, you probably don't want to watch tonight's video because we're definitely going to be delving into spoilers for the show. But I assume if you're really into the show and or into Masters and you have Netflix, you've probably watched it by now. So there were some things in the opening episode, and I felt like with the opening episode, so one of my biggest complaints, and I do have complaints for the show. I thought like things were kind of felt a little bit rushed, especially with like the opening stuff. I felt like that whole thing should have probably been spread out into two episodes. There should have been a little more build up to the final confrontation between He-Man and Skeletor there, in the basement at Castle Grayskull. So I felt like that came off a little bit rushed, and you really didn't get the climactic build up that you might expect from something like that. So, the fact that it was only 5 episodes, part one was only 5 episodes, about 30 minutes long, it really felt like there were definitely parts of the show where things kind of felt rushed to me. So I wish they had like put in more episodes basically and kind of just, you know, done a little more with building up some of that stuff. So, and the music, like the music of the original series was I love. It's one of the favorite things I like about the series. Not just like the opening and stuff, but just like throughout, like when He-Man's doing stuff and you've got that dun 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 dun. I mean that's just that's the kind of thing I love about the original series, and I didn't really get that with this new series. I thought the music was a little bit lackluster with the new series, but the overall story, I so far, I mean, this has only been part one. Again, 5 episodes, half an hour long, um, of a part one of a two-part story. Now, as I understand it, I was listening to Kevin Smith's Smodcast yesterday, and apparently he had intended for all 10 episodes to air at one time. It was Netflix who insisted upon breaking them up into two parts. And so, um, I think it would have definitely been better had they gone on, especially as a short, with only 5 episodes. If they had like built up, like if it was like a 20 episode thing, then splitting it up into two parts might have made sense to me. But 5 parts that are only 30 minutes long, breaking it up into two parts, I think was probably a mistake. But, I'm sure Netflix has its reasons for wanting to break it up into two parts. Though it would be nice if they at least told us when the second part was actually going to air. But Netflix never does that. They always wait forever to tell us when, like, the next season or whatever is going to actually pop up. So who knows when part two will actually air. And the other thing I think it's worth noting is while originally, and I do put this on, Smith and the people behind the show, when they first announced the show, they were pretty blatantly upfront saying this was going to be a direct continuation of the Filmation series. And then like a few weeks out from the show, premiering, I saw them start to backtrack on that and started saying things like, well, this is really more of a nod to the original series. It's meant for people who grew up watching the original series, but it's not actually a direct continuation. And one of the reasons they gave was legal reasons, that, the original Masters of the Universe show was done by a different production company, Filmation, and this one was being produced by, Mattel's new studio, and so I guess legally they can't call it a direct continuation of the Filmation series. So, and I think it's probably better if you view it as more of a nod than a direct continuation. Um, I don't think there was really anything in this series that contradicted the original series, but again, some characters acting a little different from what we're used to. And what I would contribute is like more real than what we saw in the original series. Because if you're honest about the original series was made in the 80s. It was made for young kids. Nobody back then when they were making that series, I think, ever thought that adults were going to be watching the series, that it was going to be, that we'd still be sitting around today talking about this series. It was essentially a 30-minute toy commercial geared towards young kids, and everybody was, at the end of the day, it was always a happy ending. Everybody got along perfectly. Um, the bad guys. I mean, I was watching original series episodes earlier in the week, um, and like there was one episode where they captured Skeletor. They had him in this like bubble, and instead of like putting him away in jail, they just launched him off into the air so that he could come back next week and cause trouble again. I mean, it was just that kind of silliness of the original series. And so I think the idea behind this series was to make it more realistic. And so like at the end of episode one, the two things I thought were off were Randor, which I actually thought Randor was more off than Tila. Randor basically kicking Duncan out and threatening to have him executed if he ever came back to the castle. I mean, that never would you ever have seen the Randor from the original series, even under the circumstances of his son having just been killed and finding out that he'd been lied to. I don't think you would ever picture the Duncan who was always, the nice guy, always, people first, and never showed anything selfish or, indications that, this guy was a monarch, so, essentially the single ruler that was used to people doing everything he said exactly when he said it, like you would expect from, a real king. So when he did that at the end of the first episode, I was like, man, that just seems way harsh. That really doesn't strike me as Randor. And Tila a little bit as well. Her basically quitting, and all that was a little. Her Adam had just died. Yes, she was lied to and stuff, but I felt like if my first initial reaction, because I'm sitting here thinking about the original characters, and I'm like, that's just way out of character. But when you start thinking about these characters more in a real life setting, again, going back to Randor. Randor is a king. He's been a king all of his life. He's been royalty all of his life. All of his life, people have basically, everyone around him, they tend not to question him. They tend to, he says to do something, they do it. So, and now he's found out that all these people that, closest to him, his closest consorts and everything, have been lying to him all these years about this big important secret. Even his wife, who kind of knew, they never told her, but even in the original series, they made it indicated that Queen Marlena knew that Adam was He-Man. She never admitted that she knew, but they made reference that there was an episode. It was the origins of the Queen, where we find out that she's from Earth and everything, and she was like, a mother always knows what her son is doing and things like that. So, she basically knew, but Randor was kind of just oblivious. Randor was always disappointed in Adam, never thought he was living up to the expectations of a prince, and of course never realizing that he was actually He-Man. And that was true in the original series. That was one of the emotions that they kind of portrayed in Randor in the original series, was his disappointment in Adam for not being, the leader, and seeing him as being the qualities of a future leader. So, but in this series, I think if you looked at a king in real life and finding out that everybody that was close to him had lied to him, that his son had just died, that and all that, his reaction is probably very realistic to what you would expect from a real king. And so, and same thing with Tila. Tila is an orphan, okay, and they even make sure to point that out in the series. They make reference to it and everything. And if people who tend to be orphans have often are dealing with issues of abandonment because their parents, for whatever reason, abandoned them. And so it's easy to see that right off the bat, that's something that Tila would have been dealing with probably throughout most of her life. And then you take the fact that everybody that she's learned to trust and love, her adopted father, Adam, who obviously there's some undertones of a romantic connection there a little bit, I think. And all these people, or at the very least, one of her best friends since they were kids, and finding out that they've been lying to her with this major secret for all these years, the amount of betrayal and anger that could cause somebody like Tila, who again was already probably has had to deal much of her life with abandonment issues, I think is very much in keeping with realism. So, these are fictional characters. They can be written multiple ways. You could certainly write her as being duty first, no matter what. I'm annoyed that you lied to me, but I'm now the she was always the captain of the guard, but now she was man at arms, and I'm going to put my duty first. I mean, you could certainly have written her that way, but the way they did it, I don't think was unrealistic. So, and as we saw over the course of the 5 episodes, she came to realize the error of her ways, and we started to see the Tila that was more recognizable to us. So I did not have a huge issue with those problems. And then as far as her being the main character in this part 1, and again, this is part 1, so I do expect He-Man's going to play a much bigger role in part 2. But I think the overall goal of this series, and this is my speculation, but I think the overall goal of this series is they're setting up Tila to essentially become the next sorceress. Who, if you're not familiar, the sorceress is actually Tila's mother. So that's where I see this series going. That's where I see the point of this series. That's why I think the focus is on Tila right now, at least more than He-Man. And and that's, I think, an important aspect of Masters of the Universe mythos, whether it's the comics, the cartoon, the toys, or what have you, the mini comics or what have you. That, I think that's something that's always been in the background of all of it. So if they're actually fleshing out that story and bringing that to a conclusion, I don't see a problem with it. So that's kind of where I stand on this series. Again, I thought they could have maybe done a little bit better uh, building up some of the things. That first initial battle, I think, should have probably taken 2 episodes. I feel like they should have made, probably made this a 15, the total thing, maybe at least 15 episodes. But overall, I thought the story was pretty solid. It's in keeping with what we know about Masters of the Universe, and as far as people wanting to see more He-Man, I think they'll probably get their wish next episode. I don't think Orko's dead. I think we're going to see Orko return. Again, going back to that Smodcast that Kevin Smith had, there were some references he made, kind of liking Orko to Gandalf from the Lord of the Ring movie. So, I think we're going to see Orko return in part 2, maybe more powerful and better than before. So, I don't think they really killed him off. The voice actors, I thought overall did a pretty decent job. I think Evil Lynn was probably my favorite character in the series. Um, the lady from Game of Thrones doing her voice, I thought did a pretty good job with her. So I would say Evil Lynn was the standout character. Everyone focuses on Tila. Of course, Skeletor basically took a back seat in part 1 as well, because he essentially was killed off in the beginning and didn't reappear until the very end. So it was very much the focuses were Evil Lynn and Tila in this part 1, and I thought Evil Lynn did a very good job. Tila, Sarah Michelle Gellar, she did decent. Not fantastic, but I didn't think she was horrible. Prince Adam, He-Man, I thought he did a better job as Prince Adam than he did He-Man. Not that we saw him much as He-Man, so it's kind of hard to say on that. But I thought he definitely did a fair job as Prince Adam. Orko, I thought, was pretty good. I actually found Orko less annoying than I did in the original cartoon. Um, Man at Arms was pretty good. Again, another actor from Game of Thrones, so I thought he did a pretty decent job. Merman, who was actually voiced by Kevin Conroy, Batman from Batman the Animated Series. The only thing about Merman is it would have been nice if they had added like the gurgle effect. I think if they had added the gurgle effect, that would have been classic. But although he was a little plain sounding for Merman, but he didn't do a horrible job or anything. Tony Todd as Scareglow, I thought was pretty good. I thought Tony Todd did a pretty good job of kind of mimicking Mark Hamill as Skeletor. So there were times where I was like, is that Mark Hamill talking or is that Tony Todd? So I thought he did a pretty good job. Mark Hamill, I mean, I thought he did a fair job. The problem I have with Mark Hamill is that his voice as the Joker from Batman the Animated Series is so ingrained in me that no matter what character he's voicing, I always hear uh, the Joker. If you go back to when he voiced the Hobgoblin in the Spider-Man animated series on Fox, again, it was a pretty fitting voice for a character like Hobgoblin, but still, when I heard him talk, it was Joker that I was hearing, not Hobgoblin. And so there were times in this series as well where I had a hard time differentiating Joker from Skeletor. Uh, I, I didn't dislike it. I just, again, being how it's so ingrained with the Joker, I feel like that is that sometimes hard to differentiate. Pona Bear, thanks for the super chat donation, much appreciated. Thought it was a pretty good story, but definitely still want Prince Adam character growth as well. I agree. I agree. And if we don't see more of Prince Adam and He-Man in part two, then I will definitely get more on that bandwagon of, this is the Tila show, not He-Man. So, but again, to me, this is we've only seen part one, 5 episodes of a two-part story. I think it would have been better if we'd seen all 10 episodes together. But I mean, there's no way that Prince Adam's dead. He was still alive at the end, so I suspect he'll get the sword and turn into He-Man, and that will probably heal him up. Um, see, that's what I'm saying. Adam is not dead. He was still alive. He got stabbed, but he was still alive at the end of part five. So he's not dead. Bean says, seeing Hero, Wonder Bread, and in the Afterlife, and King Grayskull. I mean, now those are characters I'm not super familiar with myself. Those were characters that were never used in the original series. I know next to nothing about Hero. I've seen the figure. I know he's exists, but I know very little about his true backstory. So I'm not. I thought it was a cool way for them to inject those characters into the series, including the Eternia playset, which we've never seen before. Again, that was never, I don't think, ever used in the original cartoon. So I thought that was really kind of a cool, unique way to interject those types of characters that definitely are steeped in Masters of the Universe mythos into the series. I'm sure maybe some people didn't like that they made King Grayskull a black guy, but I have no issue with that. The guy from the insurance commercials doing the voice, I forget his name. Smith also said the big fight between He-Man and Skeletor is in episode 7. Well, I'm sure, I mean, well, yeah, I don't know. Stratos in 2002 He-Man sounds just like Sean Connery, Scotland's favorite son. I don't remember that, but I'll take your word for it. Yeah, in that after show, but you'll notice he said we killed, and then he hinted or seemingly killed. He's not dead. Adam was still moving at the end of episode 5, so he's not. I mean, I guess it's possible he could die. I don't think he will, but he's not dead. But Smith was exaggerating, and if you're talking about what he was talking about in the after show, and he had the actor who played him, they were exaggerating. Oh, we killed you twice. I bet you didn't think we were going to kill you twice in the same story. But he also made indication that Adam was not dead if you watch it closely. They had to get rid of the buff white guys, so they made King Grayskull black. Maybe that. Well, they didn't get rid of all the buff white guys because there were still plenty of them in there. But yes, I'm sure in an effort to make the show more inclusive to more people, they made him a character that's never really appeared on the screen before. They made him a black guy. It's not a big deal in my opinion. And yes, I'm sure it was done for the purpose to make it more inclusive to more people. And I don't see a problem with that. It would be one thing if you're taking a major character and changing them for no reason, but you take a minor character. Same thing with the Andrea character. I mean, she appeared in one panel. She was originally a white character, I think, with red hair in the original Star Comics Marvel Comics series. One panel appearance, so they changed her. Whoopie doo. If it brings in more people to the franchise, I say go for it. I have absolutely no problem with that. Again, you talk about some major characters, I might have a little more, of a bit of a problem with that. But if you're taking minor characters and you're changing them like that, and, I have absolutely no problem with that. Chris says, I don't mind King Grayskull is different. It gives this character more range. Yeah, and again, I mean, again, like, King Grayskull is not. I guess maybe he was a little bit. I don't remember. I mean, I know I'm a little more familiar with King Grayskull than I am like Hero or Wonder Bread, which I know is a mail away figure, but they were never characters, because for me, I was never heavily into Masters of the Universe as a kid. I watched the cartoon. That was and I did read I collected the Star comic Marvel comic run as a kid, but that was it. I didn't collect I didn't have Masters of the Universe toys as a kid. I was into GI Joe and Transformers and Star Wars as a kid, and I never really got into Masters. So, um, other than watching the cartoon, I watched both He-Man and She-Ra as a kid, but I did not play with the toys. So I never got into the Steve. I didn't live, eat, and breathe Masters of the Universe. I never got into the background, of a lot of these characters and think like I said, here. I mean, if I remember, Heroes like when they tried to relaunch the toy line and make him futuristic in space, right, or something along those lines. Um, but I've since kind of tried to incorporate him into He-Man stuff. So I don't know, but I thought the way they handled it in the series I thought was pretty good. Pensive Love Battle Cat. We didn't see a lot much of Battle Cat, but I like Cringer. I thought Cringer at first. I will say at the very beginning, the voice kind of grated on me a little bit, but like as we saw more of Cringer, like when he was in the Castle Grayskull with the sorceress and stuff, and when he was reunited with Adam, I definitely like Cringer much more as the show went along. Now, if you watched it and you didn't like the show, feel free to chime in on why you didn't like it. But I would ask, give us some specifics. If you didn't like that Tila was the forefront, why didn't you like? Because certainly Tila is a major character in Masters of the Universe. So why is it that you didn't like Tila in the forefront of the show, um, at least in this first part? The next Toy News International, can you have somebody else host it since the main character isn't necessary? If I could find someone else to host it, I'd I'd be like, here you go. And I see. I guess to me, even in the original series, yes, and the original series was actually called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This series is not. This series is just called Masters of the Universe. But even in the original series, it was an ensemble cast. Yes, He Man was the one that raised the sword every week and saved the day, but it wasn't like if it was just He Man and nothing but He Man, it would have been a pretty boring show. So that's where I don't get this idea that oh my god they actually let these other characters have more of a spotlight at least in these first 5 episodes. It's the end of the world. I don't really get that. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. If that's how you feel, uh, that's a legit complaint. I'm not saying it's not legit. I'm just saying for me personally, I don't really quite understand it because again, I view all of these characters to be fairly important to the overall story of Masters of the Universe. He-Man is certainly the forefront. The original concept was He-Man. Again, the original concept was to sell toys to young kids, and a blonde, muscle-bound hero was in the '80s was what was deemed going to sell the most. So I get that, but things change, and 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 again, I would say wait until you watch the second part. If He-Man is still, if He-Man has no more airtime in the second part than he did in this part, then I probably will be there right with you saying, this show should have focused a bit more on He-Man, not just Tila. But I feel fairly confident that He-Man's going to have a much bigger role in the second part. I still think Tila will have a major role because again, I think the overall purpose of the show is to end up having Tila take over as sorceress, you know, take over the position of sorceress from her mother. And that to me is an interesting story. I mean, that, and I've said this before. To me, it's not about which character is in the forefront. It's about the story. And if the story is good, if the story is intriguing, if the story is interesting, I'm all for it. And I feel like, if what we're seeing here is the story of how Tila ends up becoming the sorceress, I don't have a problem with that. I would not be bothered if, for the majority of the series, Lion-O, Batman, Optimus Prime were dead. Well, I mean, they killed Optimus Prime in Transformers. And I don't. If you've been watching the new Transformers cartoon, I mean, Optimus Prime is still the leader, but he has not been. It's not like the whole show just focuses on Optimus Prime. I mean, it's very much an ensemble cast once again. So, Jay, who was the exploding robot with? I don't. That's a good question. I don't know. I was scratching my. I was gonna actually ask you guys that. Was that a new character that they introduced, or is that a character that was introduced, a minor character that they introduced in the past, and I'm just not familiar with it. But I was wondering that exact same question of who that guy was, the guy who where Andrea threw at the end threw the throwing star and stopped him from. It seemed like anytime he did anything, he would start to blow up, and so I don't know who that guy was. So I don't know if that's a brand new character that they made up for this series, or again if that was some minor character that was introduced somewhere. I don't even know what the character's name was. I don't know if they actually even said his name in the ship blast attack. Damien is saying, is that who he was? Okay, that name sounds familiar to me, but I'll have to go Google it after the show and look him up because I don't remember him per se. Did he have like? No, that was. I was gonna say, did he have like caps or something like the original toy? Did he have like caps that you could put in him and fire caps? But I think there was an actual He-Man figure that did that. She-Ra came out in 2000. I assume you're talking about the more recent She-Ra cartoon. I thought that one was okay for a while. It did. I actually have not watched the final season of that one. I did get a little tired of like I don't know. I guess the kid hijinks stuff grated on me for a little bit. I can't say that. I mean, it was okay. There were parts of it that were okay, but I guess just making Shira like a kid, basically a kid, and all the other characters as kids, I didn't like as much. It's one thing to be young, and it's another to be like a kid. So Mario says he missed out on the McFarlane Retro 1966 Batman figures. Do you think Target will I do. I yeah, if you're not familiar, Mario was talking about this morning. Target put up the Batman, Robin, and Joker figures for the 6 and 66 Batman figures, and they sold out in like a minute, even less maybe. So I don't know. I'm assuming the scalper bots got them, but I don't think in the long run those figures are going to be that hard to get. I think those will be at physical stores and stuff, and I don't think I could be wrong. I mean, it depends on how much Target's wanting to stock, but I just have a feeling that they're not going to be that hard to get. Triclops won't rejoin Skeletor, Beastman, Evelyn, Willie. I don't know. Probably not, but you never know. If there's a common, if well, first of all, keeping in mind that Triclops didn't really betray Skeletor because Skeletor was perceived dead. So now that Skeletor's back, Triclops would probably fall in line. And if Skeletor had a need for Triclops, he probably would accept him back into the fold. But I don't know if that will play a part in anything or what. Stephen Brett, will there be a non-San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Scareglow? Based on overseas listings, yes. However, it's not. I think it'll use a different body than the Scareglow or the Skelly God figure because it's not. it wasn't listed. The overseas listing had it listed as a regular figure, not a deluxe figure. And I think if it were going to reissue, if they were just going to say like reissue the Skelly God body as Scareglow with, maybe without the glow in the dark effect or something, or without the fancy packaging or whatever, I think it would still be at least a deluxe figure. So the fact that it's not a deluxe figure says to me it's probably going to be actually a different figure from the one that was released as the exclusive. I could be wrong, but that was my feeling. But yes, there's at least some type of Scareglow figure coming in the regular line. Render said he nabbed the Batmobile and Batcave. The little Spin Master Batman Robin figures will fit better in there than the 6-inch McFarlane. I I haven't gotten it. I definitely want to get the Batcave, but again, I don't feel like I'll probably, if I see them in stores, I'll pick them up, but I wasn't trying to pre-order them. Well, the Batmobile sold out, even initially sold out faster than the Batcave. The Batcave stuck around for a little while, so I agree with you. Probably more people are going to want the Batmobile than they will the Batcave. Boo Cat. The San Diego Comic Con uses the regular Skeletor body. It sure doesn't look like it in the pictures. It looks exactly like the Skelly God figure, only with a different head sculpt and some different, a few other minor. Maybe. I'll have to look at it closer. I was able to grab one off of the Mattel Creations website, so I don't know. I forget when they're going to ship, so I don't know when I'll actually have it in hand, but I was able to get one off of there before they sold out. But if it is the regular body, then it probably is the same figure, then with just some minor modifications. But in those pictures that they released for the Comic Con version, I mean, that looks just like the Skelly God. Revelations Whiplash is all I want. Then I'll stop whining. I liked. I mean, I will admit, I liked most of the characters' pre-event appearances than I did their after event appearances. Which were kind of like an apocalyptic type look for most of them. Like, I mean, what the hell happened to Merman? I mean, who the hell fucked up Merman's eye? I mean, that might be an interesting story. But I would definitely, if they're going to give us a Merman figure, I'd rather have Merman like from the flashback scene than the Merman with the messed up eye. I'm glad with like the Man at Arms figure, and we can actually segue into that and take a look at the Wave 2 figures. Images surfaced this weekend. So Tila. And I will admit, like, I wouldn't, this version doesn't bother me of Tila, but I wouldn't mind getting, her more normal look, before she quit her job as with the Royal Guard. Um, I wouldn't mind if they gave us that version of Tila as well. Spiker obviously, I mean technically he wasn't even really in the show. Skeletor was disguised as Spikor, so this is really I guess technically this is Skeletor disguised as Spikor, but for the figure I think it actually looks pretty good. So this is probably one of the cooler figures in the wave. I like this Man at Arms. I'm glad they went with this version of Man at Arms as opposed to his look later on. I'm sure we probably will get those versions at some point, but I'm glad they gave us the more classic look with him. And I thought he did a really good job in the show. I definitely like Man at Arms. Beastman. So we didn't really get. I think he was in one of the. We saw him briefly, like from far away in the opening battle scene. He was in one of the vehicles, but we really didn't get a look at Beastman's look before the big event. So I guess that's why they gave us this version of Beastman. So it doesn't bother me, but I guess I would have probably rather had his pre version over this version. But again, we really didn't get a look at him, um, since we only got the brief look in the during the battle. And like I said, I think he was in the Land Shark. I think he was the driver of the Land Shark, but they never showed a close up of him. Now, I know we're getting a deluxe Triclops figure, which I'm sure is probably going to be his cult leader outfit version, and then I think we're probably going to get a regular version of him as well. Same thing with Trapjaw. There's supposed to be a deluxe version of Trapjaw coming, so that's probably going to be his after event look, I'm guessing. Not buying. See, I mean, I get if you don't like it, but what exactly is meth head? Because she shaved the side of her head. I mean, you try fighting in long hair and having to wear a heavy headpiece. I mean, I don't have a problem with. I mean, I get liking the traditional look better, but if they just threw in the traditional head, it wouldn't really fit with this outfit. So because she changed up her outfit a bit as well. So if they had just given us the traditional head with this body, I don't think it would have worked very well. So I hope they just end up giving us a second figure at some point, and being as predominant in the show as she is, I think it's probably a good bet that we will see more than one Tila. How much are they going for? How much? Sorry if you said before I didn't see it, but how much did what go for? I think Sarah Gellar had a bad choice. Was a bad choice for Tila. I don't know. I don't. I mean, and the other thing you got to realize, and I didn't until I was watching like the after shows and stuff, that most of the show was filmed during COVID, which meant that none of them were other than like the very first initial. I think they got together one time, all of them in the studio, which is how voice actors normally work, because normally they do play off of one another. They did their parts individually, essentially from their homes. In the interview with Geller, she said that they had to convert her upstairs room into essentially a sound stage so that she could record her parts. So that had to make it a little more challenging than what it would have normally been, in my opinion. So I think overall they did a pretty good job. Yeah, Jerry. Yeah, it was, and she did a great job. I thought she did. I definitely feel like Evil Lynn, out of all the characters, was the best character. I thought she did the best job with the voice. I think she did the best job just portraying Evil Lynn. Kind of making us think that she was a good guy, and I think she was even kind of actually heading in that direction, but then got pulled back. But I think she did a great job with all of that. So I really feel like Evil Lynn was definitely the standout character of the show. I it had its up again. I didn't. She wasn't the best. I grant you, she was not the best. I don't think she was horrible, but and again, kind of trying circumstances with being in your home, having to film it by yourself. But I mean, she's done. It's not like she's new to voice acting. She did. She was the voice in the Rebels cartoon, the Star Wars Rebels cartoon. She was the female Sith hunter or Jedi hunter. I forget what they're called, but she voiced that character, and I thought she did a pretty good job in that show. There's a lot of high caliber voice actors in this series. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you had Tony Todd, great actor. Um, you had Mark Hamill, of course. You had Kevin Conroy. You had I didn't even. I mean, Jason Mewes, I thought actually did a pretty good job of Stinkor. Even though he wasn't in it that much, but I actually thought Stinkor was pretty, portrayed as a pretty cool character. So I thought he actually did a pretty good job there. Um, And then like I said, you had the actress who played Cersei in Game of Thrones doing Evelyn. You had the actor who played Davos in Game of Thrones doing Man at Arms. Yeah, I mean, Tony Todd has just done so many things over the years. It's crazy. I mean, he's been in Star Wars stuff. He's been in Star Trek. He's been in, you know, Candyman. I mean, he pops up all over the place, and half the time you don't even realize it. And he's a really talented, both physical, real live actor and voice actor. So, have I seen the first Hot Toys Mysterio review on YouTube? Stunning figure and the skull. I have not seen the review. I saw them. I saw Hot Toys release the updated, unhelmeted head sculpt images the other day, and it looked pretty good. But I have not seen any reviews on that figure. I thought Mark Hamill wasn't great in this series. Daniel says I I, I don't. Again, to me, going back to, it wasn't that I thought he did a bad job. It was just that to me, it sounded so much like the Joker that it, like, like one scene in particular, like when he had come back to life and he was like telling Evelyn his plan, and he was like, "Great job, Lynn." I mean, it's almost like I heard him saying, "Great job, Harley." I mean, it was just that much, and I mean, part of that's just that he did such an iconic job with the Joker that it's really kind of hard to get away from that. I think so. I don't think he did a bad job. I just, to me, again, it's hard to hear Skeletor when I'm hearing the Joker. Him always sounds like the Joker. Well, actually, when he started talk, when he very first started talking as Spikor, and then he transformed into Skeletor, like I thought that was actually pretty good. And then, there were some parts where I thought he did a really good job. I mean, he was really convincing as like the melodramatic bad guy. But yeah, again, it's really hard to separate Joker from Mark Hamill anytime he does voice acting. And says he would have picked someone else for Skeletor. Try to have him do the sound. I'm the fact that they had the original Skeletor voice actor doing Mossman. They brought him in for Mossman, which I thought he did a pretty good job with that. Alan Oppenheimer. I'm surprised they didn't just have him do Joker or Joker, have him do Skeletor. I wonder if I mean, having to do that kind of high nasally Skeletor voice might be hard. So the fact that he's older now and stuff, it might be too difficult for him to really be able to pull it off. You see that with voice actors sometimes where they have a hard time recreating the voices of characters they did like 20 years ago. Um, Frank Welker with Megatron, I think, was kind of this, had some difficulties, trying to do Megatron again years later. So I wonder if that's why they didn't actually just bring him in and do Skeletor. But I was glad to see that they at least brought him into the show and had him doing like Mossman stuff. And again, I thought he did a pretty good job with Mossman. And I didn't like that much how like characters like Trapjaw, like I didn't like Trapjaw very much. I actually thought Trapjaw would have been a better choice to be the this technology cult leader than Triclops would have been, being that Trapjaw is half metal already and has all the weapon gear and stuff. So I felt like that was maybe a little miscasting on. It would have been better if they had done Trapjaw as the leader of the technology cult than and had like Triclops as his second hand man. Is there a Masters of the Universe Grayskull coming for Masters of the Universe Revelations? I've not heard of anything. Nothing's impossible, but nothing that we've seen indication of at this point. just the Masters of the Universe Origins Castle Grayskull. Yeah, and I felt like it probably should have been the other way around. I feel like Trapjaw should have been the one that was leading the cult, and like Triclops was his lackey. I Trapjaw is one of my favorite characters, so I'm kind of impartial, but I didn't really like how they portrayed Trapjaw in the series. What happened to Merman when did he become a Shakespearean actor? What happened to see? I thought Kevin Conroy did a pretty good job, but I think if they just added some gargling in there, it would have been perfect. And I liked, like in the original series, Merman was kind of a buffoon, right? He was supposed to be the lord of the sea, but I don't think we ever saw his army. And he was basically just regulated to a henchman buffoon. Whereas I like in this series, they made him an actual leader of this undersea kingdom that had formed an alliance with Skeletor. They were almost partners than Merman just being a henchman. Now again, it would have been interesting to know what the fuck happened to Merman between the beginning, the first episode, and later on when his eye was all messed up and everything. But I kind of like how the way they portrayed Merman. But I do feel like they should have added some gurgling in with his voice. And for the most part, I thought the animation was pretty decent. Though I didn't like when like they would mix in like the computer generated stuff, like especially in the opening battle scene whenever they would show a vehicle. I mean, you could clearly tell it wasn't just animation; it was, essentially computer generated stuff. So I didn't really like that. I find that that type of animation looks kind of fake to me. So I prefer the more traditional animation. I'm sure that's probably it was a cost saving measure. Kevin Conroy can play Aquaman in the next cartoon. And I was another thing I was like, what happened to like we saw obviously Roboto, and I like Roboto. I thought they did a pretty good job with him. Um, but like I'm like, especially when they were like telling Man at Arms to go back to Castle Grayskull. I mean, I guess you could say that because nobody was supposed to go to Grayskull due to the mandate from King Randor. That's why we didn't see any of the other heroes. Like, like where was Stratos? Where was Ram Man? Where were a lot of these other Masters of the Universe guys, which really were kind of no shows in the first part. I was kind of like, where are those guys? Pensive says, when does the Faker toy come out? So it's going to hit Target stores first. And Targets, from what I'm told, Targets are going to start doing their toy aisle resets this week. So we could start probably seeing him as early as next weekend, I would say. It can vary from store to store, but he is expected to start arriving at Target stores very soon. So um, I would say I'm not going to give you an exact date, but like I said, it could be any day now, really. Yeah, I thought Stinkor was actually pretty good. I definitely hope well, I know we're getting a Stinkor figure, but the 2000X Triclops handle did he? See, I gotta go back. I have not watched the 2000X series in a long time, so I gotta go back and try and watch that. I'm not sure where it's available, but I don't like that He-Man, Orko, and Roboto died. Well, He-Man is still alive. Orko, I think, is going to come back in part two, based on clues that Smith has been dropping. As far as Roboto, I mean, he's a robot, so anything's possible. But yeah, I didn't like. I mean, giving having characters die, I thought added some realism. I mean, Moss Man getting killed in the first episode, even though he did pop up in the afterlife. But I liked that scene with Orko when he was taking on Scareglow. I thought that was a great scene. Well, not all men, but there was more men in the show than there were women. So there was three women in the show, and everyone else was a man. Well, four if you count Milena that appeared for 2 minutes in the first episode. The ultimate sacrifice by the man, by He-Man, Orko, Mossman. I mean, well, again, Roboto might be dead. I don't know, or at least will we see him? I mean, again, Roboto's a robot, so they could bring him back, but will we see them bring him back? I don't know, but I do think we'll see Orko return in some way. The real Spikor and Clawful could be in part two. Yeah, they might be. Well, the real. I mean, we saw Clawful. He was in one. I think he was also in one of the vehicles in the battle scene. So yeah, the one we saw at the beginning was fake, but we did get a glimpse at Clawful. I think in the opening episode. Renders FX. Do I think there'll be a second season? Assuming after part. I assume you mean after part two. So Smith was hinting that they're at least going to leave it open. See, the thing is first of all, as much as there are people who are screaming they hate it, I've seen plenty of people say they like it. So I don't care what you do, especially in this day and age of social media. There's going to be people who hate it. It wouldn't matter what they did. So you're not going to please everybody no matter what you do. That's just it's not going to happen. And because social media makes it so easy to have everyone's voice heard, if social media was around when the original series was made, I guarantee you there'd be people who said they hated it. There'd be people who said, "Oh, you know, this show is so woke. Look at how they're making Tila, captain of the guard, and this show's not masculine enough, or whatever." So, and that's not to say that people who don't like it are wrong. It's not. I mean, they're legitimate. If you really don't like it, that's a legit reason. I mean, I'm not saying you should have to like something. I'm not. I'm saying that it doesn't matter what they do. There's going to be people who don't like it. Now, as far as credibility goes, if you were bitching and complaining, and every moment you saw an opportunity to make a comment online saying the show was going to suck or whatever before you even saw one episode, you lose some credibility when you do that. And that's not even to say, well, you know what? I heard that Tila is going to be the lead in the show, and I'm not sure if I'm going to like that or not. That's one thing. If you express a concern because you heard something, as long as you're still willing to keep an open mind, that's one thing. But if you're going around going, "Oh, this show is going to be so woke, and Kevin Smith sucks, and he's destroyed Masters of the Universe," and all that before the show is even aired, you know, in my view, you lose credibility when you do that. So, and there was a number of people doing that, well, like I said, leading up into the show. So those are the people. Like if I'm just dismissive of, those are the people I'm dismissive of. And I will put, like I've sat here and I've talked about like the Snake Eyes movie, which I've not seen. It opened up this weekend. I've not seen. I've heard mixed things. But I've sat here and I expressed concerns that I had with the Snake Eyes movie, and why I wasn't personally finding myself to be super excited about it. but it's not like I jumped on online every moment that I got and said, "Oh my God, that Snake Eyes movie is going to totally suck. Anybody who goes to see it is stupid. Snake Eyes is really crappy, and it's because they casted an actor who didn't have blonde hair, and because of that, the movie's going to totally suck, and things like that." And that's what some people were doing with Masters of the Universe, and they were getting on Kevin Smith's case and things like that. So again, if you were like, you know what, if Tila really is going to be the main focus of this entire series, I'm probably I'm finding myself less excited about it. I really want to see He-Man in action, and He-Man's the character that I really love, and so on. So those are legitimate critiques, or expressing legitimate concerns. Um, but there is a difference in what some people were doing, and expressing a legitimate concern that you might have. So anyway, as far as the second season, I have no idea, because I have no idea. I don't, the reading comments on a few message boards on the internet just is not a big enough, doesn't give you a big enough view to see how many people really don't like it and how many people did like it, and what kind of viewership did it get, and all that jazz. So, and then there's just a matter of costs and think I don't know what is factoring into the decisions to whether we would get more or not. I mean, it seemed like from day one they were essentially saying this was only going to be a two-part thing, and that it was really never intended to go beyond the two parts. So I don't know if that really is the case. Again, Kevin Smith in the Smodcast yesterday seemed to be indicating that they at least are leaving it open for a possibility of more stuff beyond the part two. But whether we actually get it or not, I don't know. But because there are people who are saying they hate it or whatever, I take that with a grain of salt, because I've seen just as many people say they like it. Roboto reminds me. Actually, what he reminded me of is the robot character from the Invincible series. In fact, sounded. I don't think it was voiced by Zachary Quinto, who Spock from the new Star Trek movies, who did the voice of the robot in the Invincible series, but sounded very similar to that. That's who it reminded me of. Was that character? Well, it has to be. I mean, it's Netflix that's going to make the final decision, and I don't know if Netflix has greenlit it, but I mean, I hope so. I mean, unless part two really sucks, I'm hoping there's more. Can I pull the chat? Why? I mean, there's what? At most, I don't even know how many people are watching right now. So it's certainly not a large enough polling table, group to really get a accurate idea of what people think. Um, and like I said, I watch various Facebook groups, I watch message boards, I watch your guys' comments. So I've seen plenty of people who say they like it. I've seen people who say they don't like it. I've seen a lot of people who hadn't even watched it say they don't like it. So, but that's really not going to give us a very accurate representation. And that's part of the problem with the internet. We get ourselves in these little groups, and then we think, well, everybody in this little group thinks the same way I do, so that must be, everybody must think that way. And that's really not how life works. Um, you can get a small group of people all say they want something made, like an action figure or something made, and then, but in the reality is there's really not a lot of people who want to see that action figure made, and so if they make it, it doesn't sell well, or if they don't make it, that's why. I mean, you know, I certainly, if you want to, everyone's free to chime in and say whether they like it or dislike it. But even if every single person that's watching tonight said, I thought the show sucked, that doesn't mean that everybody out there thought the show sucked. If I said the show sucked, that wouldn't mean the show sucks. Just like me saying I thought the show was very good, I don't sit here and pretend to say, well, because I thought it was good, it was good. Um, I don't really understand why people didn't like it. I have a hard time understanding it, but I do understand that just because I think a certain way doesn't mean everybody thinks that way. So I just happen to be the guy talking on camera, whereas you guys are just commenting. But you guys can go make your own videos or live streams if you want to sit there and talk about how much the show sucked. I just happen to like it, and so, but that again, I'm not sitting here advocating that because I like it, everybody likes it. Yeah, I heard Smith's daughter was in it, but I wasn't sure what character she was playing. Of course, I'll be absolutely honest with you. I have no idea who Kevin Smith's daughter is. So, again, I'm not this huge. I've never been a huge Kevin Smith fan. I don't have a problem with him, but I'm not like some diehard Kevin Smith fan. I've only seen a couple of his movies. And while I think he's funny sometimes, he definitely has kind of a set track of jokes type humor. And once you've heard it, it does kind of get old after a little while. But I do think he did a pretty good job with this show. If it continues to be Tila, you won't. If the story is not good, I won't like it. I would like to see He-Man portrayed more in the second part. So if they don't give He-Man any more screen time in the second part, I would say that people who don't like it for that reason, that's a very legitimate criticism. I mean, it's not that it's not legitimate now, but I think because this is only part one of a 10-part story, I think maybe it would be fair to wait until you see the second part. But if the story still, even if He-Man only appeared two times in the part two, but the story was very good, I still would probably enjoy it. But yes, I would certainly say that I would very much like to see more of He-Man in the second part. But that's not a guarantee that I would hate it just for that reason. Um, so if I wasn't clear on that, I apologize. But to me, as I've said before, the most important thing is all of these characters are pretty important to Masters of the Universe. Man at Arms, Tila, Evelyn, Skeletor, Beastman, they all play an important role. So as long as and I don't have a huge problem which ones are focused on, as long as the overall story is good. And and while I agree with this sentiment from Rick, watch all 10 episodes and then judge it. If you watched the first 5 episodes and you were just like, oh my God, this just sucked, for whatever reason, you thought the story was completely stupid. You thought, I mean, I wouldn't want you to watch something that you truly hated, even just to see what happens. But, but if you're like, this wasn't horrible, but I really would have liked to seen He-Man more, and or whatever, then I would say, probably give it a chance and watch the 10 up. I mean, what's it going to kill you? I assume you already have Netflix, so it's not like you're going out and paying additional money to watch it. I wouldn't advocate. I mean, if you didn't already have Netflix, I wouldn't advocate that you go out and buy, subscribe and pay for Netflix just to watch this show. I wouldn't. I assume most of you who are watching this series already had Netflix, and so it's simply you're just turning on the TV and watching a show. So I don't feel like you're being in position that much to watch it. But if you truly just hated it and you couldn't stand the first part, then and you don't want to watch the second part, I certainly wouldn't sit here and tell you you've got to watch the second part. I mean, could we see? I suppose we could. Certainly possible. again, I mean, I've seen plenty of people like it. I've seen plenty of people hate it. I've seen people like, yeah, it was okay. But one of the things about people who like to complain is they tend to be the loudest because, and this isn't everybody, but there are definitely those people online that they will go out of their way every chance that they see to go on and make a comment. Oh, this sucked. This show sucks, or oh, this is the Tila, Dyke show, or whatever stupid comments that I see, and I see it on the when I go to the TNI. Anytime we post news about new Masters of the Universe figures, I'll go on and start reading through the Facebook comments on the TNI Facebook page, and I'll see comments like that, and it's like you know. I don't think it's productive. I don't think you're making your case that the show sucks. I think you're probably making less of a case. Like I said, if you've got constructive criticism, if you're stating exactly why you don't like the show and giving good reasons is in the eye of the beholder, but if at least you're being explaining why you don't like it, that's one thing. But Brian, I have no problem if you sit here and say you don't like it. I'm not saying not to say you don't like it. I'm talking about in generalities of the internet. And I mean, if you say you don't like it here, tell us why. I think that adds more impact to it. But nobody's telling you not to say you don't like it. So, and I'm not even talking about you guys specifically here in this chat. I'm just talking about on the internet specifically. When you see people that are just going around everywhere they possibly can to say the show sucks, and not even usually giving reasons to why they think it sucks, or giving vague reasons, or people who were saying the show sucked before they even watched it. Those are the types of things I'm talking about. But again, nobody's sitting here saying you can't say you didn't like the show here, here in the comment section. All right, I think we've time to move on to Marvel Legends because I also wanted to talk about the latest happenings with the Haslab Marvel Legends Sentinel. So, oops, wrong screen, guys. Sorry. So I talked about this in the last news video. The Hasbro guys threw out this teaser image this week, basically showing us that in some unlockable form, we're going to be getting a new Silver Surfer figure and the Frankie Ray Nova. Now, last time I checked, so when I wrote this article the other day, when I write this on the 22nd, the project was up to 8478 with backers. So we'll click over. So we're at 8,900. So definitely, it's slowed down, over the last few days. Like I would say that even when they teased these two characters, I didn't see a huge boost in new backers. But anyone who thinks this is not going to get fully back, that they're not going to reach this 14,000, I think is crazy. I mean, we've got 36 days. We're just over a week, and we're well over halfway to it. I don't think we're going to. I don't think. I think we're probably only going to get a few unlockable tiers. And generally, with these Kickstarters, you actually see more action on the back end. As you get closer, because people have got to save up. They've got to, things like that. I mean, I'm always one of those that waits till the last minute to back these things when I do. I don't think I've ever backed any of these crowdsourcing projects like, in the first week. Generally it's like the last week or what have you. So I don't think there's much chance that Galactus is not going to get funded. And I honestly, my opinion is, I remember with the Sentinel, they were really caught by surprise with how fast that thing got funded and then how quickly it was going through all the unlockable tiers. Like originally, I think it was like 3 unlockable tiers that they were planning on doing for that Sentinel project, and then they found that they had to come up with some more stuff because they had gone through the unlockable tier. So I think the reason why they set the bar so high this time around, they went from 6,000 with the Sentinel to 14,000. That's quite a jump. But I think they did that on purpose because I really don't think they wanted this thing, going through all the tiers as quickly as it did in the, like it did with the Sentinel. Capona Bear, once again, dude, thanks for the super chat donation. Always appreciated. Going back to He-Man, I think this series has more depth than the toy commercials of yesteryear. Still want to have more He-Man, but enjoying the roster thus far. I don't disagree with you. Jonathan says the Galactus looks amazing. I agree. It looks like a great figure, but I mean, there's no denying, as great as it is, that $400 for a lot of us is hard to plop down for one action figure. I mean, no matter how cool something is, it's still $400. Not saying it's not worth $400. Not sure, but yeah. So it's not surprising to me that it slowed down a bit. Again, one of the big differences between the Sentinel and this Galactus, I mean, I don't think the price difference is a big enough factor. I mean, it's $50 more essentially than what the Sentinel was. So I don't think if you are able to plop down $350 for an action figure, I think $400 is probably going to be within your budget as well. But I think the big difference between the two projects is that Galactus is not an army builder. You only need one Galactus. There's only one World Devourer out there. So whereas the Sentinel was an army builder essentially, and so people were buying, the maximum number that they could. I mean, not everybody, but there were definitely people out there buying more than one Sentinel. So that's to me the biggest difference of why this one is going a little bit slower. It's less about the price hike and more about just the fact that people are only buying one as opposed to buying 2, 3, 4. I forget what the limit was, but I think it was 5 was the limit. So that to me is the big difference between the two projects. And I'm sure Hasbro had to realize that going in. I'm sure they knew that people weren't going to be, as many people weren't going to be buying multiples of this figure as they were with the Sentinel. Jerry says, I thought the Sentinel was worth $350 with its heads. Those can be dioramas. And you got the figures. I mean, I will say, if all the unlockable tiers, and one thing I noticed from day one was, remember with the original Sentinel project when it first started, they were up front. They said, we've got, I forget, I think it was 3. I think it was 3 initially, and they were like, we've got 3 unlockable tiers, and when you get to this tier, you unlock this one, and when you get to this tier, they didn't tell us exactly what they were, but they told us how many unlockable tiers. Now, they ended up having to add some because, again, they went through them so fast. But I noticed this time around, they told us that there was going to be unlockable tiers, but they gave us no numbers. We have absolutely no idea how many they've had planned for this project. So they did not give us any kind of number of how many unlockable tiers there's going to be. Nor do we know what the goal, once we get to 14,000, how far will we need to get to the next, to the next tier to assure that we're going to get it. So they've given us none of that information that they gave us originally on the Sentinel program. So it's like, I feel like they did that on purpose so that their hands aren't tied for what they can do. They can basically do as many or as little unlockable tiers as they want. And you've got to keep in mind that while we all are like, yeah, give us more, the more they throw into it, the more that cuts into their overall profit margins on the figure. So, I mean, I'm sure they factored in that they still are able to make a profit on the figure, even if they end up doing all the all the unlockable tiers. And of course, the more people they get, the more money they make, and that plays a factor as well. But I feel like they deliberately set it up so that it was much slower this time around, getting to the overall goal and then getting to those unlockable tiers. What's up, Funko? Cirque says space is an issue. Yeah, to me, with a figure like this, space is less than an issue. Like I have a shelf, a top shelf where I currently have the Marvel Universe Galactus, and I have the two Sentinels, the Toy Biz Build a Figure and the Marvel Universe Sentinel. So I can pretty much, because it's a top shelf, so there's no there's plenty of room. You know, this Galactus I don't expect is going to take, width wise, it's going to take that much more space than the current Marvel Universe Galactus. So it's really just height wise, and so I've got plenty of height space on that shelf, so I can just switch out the Galactus that I have on display on that shelf for this new Galactus, and it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. Whereas if you've got something like a big wide vehicle that takes up a lot of space, both with both this way and this way, it it becomes much harder to find a space for something like that than something that's just taller. So now, I mean, and it can vary obviously. If you've got your current Galactus on a shelf that has another shelf above it, then you're going to be more limited to the height that you can do with the figure. But for me, like I currently have those figures on a top shelf, and so it really won't be. I can add my new Sentinel on that shelf, and then I can just take the Galactus that I have on that shelf down and put the new Galactus up, and it really won't take much more space on that shelf. Some of you look like still going on about Masters. Let's see. Is there anything new I can tell you about What If Marvel Legends? Other than we should get the full reveal, which I've already told you guys before, but I do expect those to be fully revealed this this coming Wednesday. This Wednesday is the live stream, so I do expect that we'll get the full reveal. But I don't really have any additional details um, that I haven't already shared with you in the past. So I don't. So it's possible they might tease on Wednesday. It's possible they might tease some more of the. We got the tease for the Human Torch a little while ago, so I could see them teasing another one from the retro wave. But I don't think we're going to get the full reveal this week, because I don't think the figures are going to go up for pre-order until next month. So I expect the reveals on the retro figures to go up on in August. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if they tease, and it's possible they could go on and show off the wave, even if it's not going up for pre-order this week. But I do expect more likely that's going to happen. That full reveal is going to come on next month sometime. I saw if you're talking about the Galactus image with the older Fantastic Four images, or images, figures, but I haven't seen anything. I mean, we know what's going to be in that, or we've got a pretty good idea what's going to be in the wave. The four members of the Fantastic Four, which are going to be in their more classic outfits, and then High Evolutionary should be in that wave, which I'm pretty excited for. That is probably the figure I want to see the most. And then damn, the last figure in that wave is slipping my mind at the moment, but it was another cool one. Damn, now it's slipping my mind. But Blake, want to chime in with another nice super chat donation? Thank you, brother. I did not see. Okay, I don't know. I will check my spam folder because I did not see it. So I will check for that. Sorry, if you sent the email, that's why I didn't respond, because I didn't actually see it. It was a crazy week this week with all the different Comic-Con stuff, and we had overseas conventions going on this week, and we had Comic-Con at home, and it was just like nonstop all week. So Psycho Man, thank you, Gnarly. That should be the last figure in that wave. But I was little, because overseas conventions, of course, take place. It's daytime, it's nighttime here when it's daytime where most of these overseas conventions take place. So I'm literally like posting news. I've been posting news this week, like around the clock. So, I mean, it's always crazy around Comic-Con time, so it's nothing new. But yeah, Psycho Man is the last. So it should be the four members of the Fantastic Four and their more classic Fantastic Four outfits, and then High Evolutionary and Psycho Man is what I know to be for the Fantastic Four retro wave. Now again, I think we might get a tease or two. Hopefully, hopefully I hope they show the High Evolutionary, because again, that's the one I really want to see. But if anything, they'll probably just show off other members of the Fantastic Four, and then probably the full reveal will come next month. And there's no Build-A-Figure on that wave because it's a retro wave. Good job as always. Like the 20s. Thanks, Jeff. Much appreciated. And I'm trying to think as far as Marvel Legends go. So we've got the Fantastic Four retro wave. We've got the second Disney Plus wave, and we have a pretty good idea. I think, if I remember, I don't have the list in front of me, but we're pretty sure that the Sylvie figure is the one Loki figure in the wave, and then based on listings that had popped up on one of the overseas Amazon sites, we know, or we're assuming that we know that there's going to be a Captain Carter figure in that wave, and there's going to be a zombie Captain America figure in that wave, and there's going to be uh, the Black Panther Star-Lord figure. So there's two. And there's and the other figure that we saw listed in that wave was a Spidey zombie hunter, and I have no idea what that's going to be. Obviously one of the episodes is going to deal with zombies, and I guess Spider-Man hunts them in the episode, but I don't think we've seen that look for the character in the trailers yet. I don't think, unless it's like the one where he's wearing the Doctor Strange cape or something. Um, but that, and then there's two other figures in the wave in the Build-A-Figure that I've not seen any indication of at this point. So we'll probably find that out on Wednesday. And then the other reveal I know of that should be coming on Wednesday is the deluxe What If figure, the standalone What If figure, which is a deluxe figure, which should be the Hydra Stomper, the Steve Rogers Ironmonger figure. Philip says Zombie Cap goes to Walmart. Watch. I don't think it's that wave's not exclusive, so that those should be available everywhere. Means that, so is it more difficult keeping up with San Diego Comic Con toy news when it's spread out like it was this week versus a 3 day info? Or I guess it depends on your idea of difficulty. So the big hardest thing with all this virtual stuff, I mean, I tend to like it when they spread the news out. Like even like on Friday when there was like a bunch of stuff coming out all at once, I tend to find that the lesser stuff gets kind of buried so that people don't catch that news because there's just so much stuff coming out. So I personally like it when the stuff is spread out as opposed to just like revealing everything at once. I actually like, Hasbro doing the monthly live streams each month where they kind of spread out the reveals and stuff for the different brands as opposed to just doing it all at like Comic Con and Toy Fair. So I personally kind of like that better. And then of course I mean, having to fly to California and get a hotel for 4 days, 4 or 5 days, and running around a convention hall floor is not cheap, nor is it easy. So from that aspect, 100% virtual is makes things easier on my end. I will say though, because a lot of times you don't know when things are going to come out. It's not like companies contact me and say, "Hey, we're." I mean, sometimes you get a heads up, but not a lot of times you don't. And so it's not like, and sometimes things leak out, and you never know when things are going to leak out. So you have to kind of always be watching for the news, and that can get a little wearing at times because you find you're having to constantly be monitoring everything on a regular basis. And you feel like if you walk away from the computer for a minute, there's going to be like this major breaking news that's going to happen. And I do suspect that this coming week, is going to be much quieter, other than Wednesday with the Hasbro live stream. I mean, that's not to say that there won't be things that come out, but I am, the Target con is over, the Walmart con is over. Companies are kind of getting over their San Diego Comic Con reveals and stuff. So I do expect that we'll have at least a little bit of a quiet period here, or maybe our wallets can recuperate from all the pre-orders and stuff, before we kind of really jump back into things. Though I saw, at one point Dan Young made a comment saying that there was a lot of stuff coming in August for Marvel, and then of course there's the PulseCon coming, which I'm thinking is probably going to be in September sometime. So we still, I think we still got plenty of reveals coming in the days ahead. Hurdle Dave said he watered his wallet; it was so dry. I don't think. I mean, I think we'll see conventions return. I mean, they've already started to a certain extent. I do have to wonder. I mean, I always hear all these companies say, "Oh, we miss being with you guys at the conventions and yada yada yada." But I've got to wonder if, I mean, these are all businesses, and so they're going to do what's best for them business wise. And I do have to wonder if, if they've learned over the course of these last 2 years that they necessarily really don't need a big event like San Diego Comic Con to sell their exclusives, to get the news out about their products and stuff, that they can actually do it virtually. And I've got to think that it's probably cheaper for them to go that route than having to, they've got to pack up all their stuff, they've got to fly all their people out to these different conventions and stuff. So I have to wonder if and I have no idea, but I do have to wonder if, some of these companies aren't going, well, you know what, we really don't need to go to all these conventions. It's really probably more cost effective if we just continue to do what we've been doing the last 2 years. Um, Again, I have no idea, but I that thought has crossed my mind. But I think conventions in their own right, I don't think are going to go away. And I do think there is an element of, just being able to meet people in person and such. Chris Allen says talking about the compound Walmart exclusive Hulk. I have the Marvel Universe one that they did as a Comic Con exclusive, several years ago. So I have that one. I have not pre-ordered this Marvel Legend one yet. I don't know if I will or not. I don't I don't think it's a terrible figure, but it's not like, oh my god, I've got to have it. I got to say that this year's PulseCon exclusives for Marvel do not interest me that much. The Venom figure, we've been seeing the images because people have been getting it overseas already. Those exclusives, so that Venom figure really does not interest me that much. And I was surprised to see that they left the holes in the shoulder of the figure. Um, if you've seen the images, I thought that was kind of weird. And then what was the other one? Oh yeah, the Modoc one. That one really doesn't interest me at all either. So I probably will not get either one of those PostCon Marvel Legend exclusives this year, which is good. That leaves me more money to save up for Galactus. Um, Probably I definitely want. I said this before. I think I definitely want the Trapper Black Series figure exclusive. The Dave Filoni exclusive. I definitely want to try and get that one, and I want to get the Zartan classified figure. Those are probably the only two PulseCon exclusives this year that I really want to get. I think that was just overhyped marketing. Essentially they just reissue. They put up stuff that had sold out already. So, and they did put some new things up this today. So, I don't know what you consider big, but they put those Batman figures up. They had previously put up the Batcave, the 66 Batcave, and the Batmobile, and they listed the figures online, the other week, but they didn't make them available for pre-order. So today was really the first day you could actually pre-order those figures, and of course they sold out in seconds. And then they also put up, I think, some Funko Pop stuff, which I don't follow closely enough to know if that was new or just reissues. And then they put some WWE figures up. The Legends of WWE Series 11, I think, went up today, and once again quickly sold out, or most of them did anyway. So, they did put up some new stuff this morning. It's just, whether you consider that to be big or not, I don't know. But what would you consider to be big? Yeah, that is probably the one I want the most, is the Zartan figure, and only because they added the color change ability. I know that's in some ways kind of not the big deal, but just to me, that makes it worth getting. Kyle, do I think we'll see a Marvel Legends Tom Hardy? Almost definitely, with the new movie coming out and everything. And I'm sure we'll see a Carnage figure too from that movie. Turtle Day, the only thing was able to get the Batcave a few weeks back, but I can't get the Batmobile or the figure's not sure if I still want it. Yeah, to me, like, that's going to be, if I walk in my Target store and I see them on shelves, I probably will get them, but I'm not going to go hunting for them. I'm not going to sit, refreshing my browser on the internet. It, you know, I guess if they just made them readily available online, I might get them that way, but those are really more of a, would probably end up being more of an impulse buy. The coolest thing to me was the Batcave, and I still think that's pretty cool. So that's the one out of the things that they've shown so far. If they end up, I'm really kind of like, if they end up started delving deep into Batman's 66 Rogue Gallery, then I would become even, very more interested in the line. But I've just got this idea that they're only going to give us a few, characters, pretty much the same characters we saw Mattel give us. and part of that might be likeness rights. I don't know, but I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to delve deep into Batman's Rogue Gallery from the '66 show with this line. So unless I see indication of that, I just it doesn't interest me as much. We've gotten a Batmobile 6-inch before. We've gotten those figures before. You know, Mattel did them, and you know they weren't that bad. So 66 Catwoman is awesome. Yeah, and I hope they do her again. But you know, again, we've gotten her like, you know, give me somebody like King Tut or the egg. Damn, what was that character's name? The Vincent Price character, Egghead. You know, give me characters like that, and I'll be all in for it. But I know I've mentioned it here, but I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for it too, man. You know, the Lobo figure from McFarlane. And did you see Storm Collectibles is doing his bike? So I don't know if it's just his bike or if they're gonna include a figure with it, but I'm sure that would work with the DC Multiverse one as well. So if you want a 6-inch scale uh, bike for Lobo, whether it's the Storm Collectibles one or the McFarlane one or even the older Mattel one, which is actually a pretty good figure, if you got that Mattel DC Multiverse Lobo figure, you know, you might want to check that bike out. I don't know what it's going to cost yet, but give us the bomb accessory. Yeah, I would rather see something like the bomb accessory with a shark. Give us a set like that than like the swim trunk, the surfboards with the swim trunks. I don't know why that's so popular. I mean, Mattel did it, and now McFarlane's doing those. I mean, you know, it was a funny scene, but you know, yeah, I agree with you. Give me something like, you know, the shark hanging off Batman's leg with the bomb or something like that. Some goons, yeah. I mean, if I see indication that McFarlane's really going to delve deep into that stuff, then I'll become much more interested. But if this is just we're going to crank out, you know, a couple Batman figures and such, and then move on, then to me it just doesn't interest me that much. I don't know yet. We haven't even. I mean, they've told us it's coming, but we haven't seen the figure itself, so we've probably got a little ways to go. Though honestly, I'm more interested. You know, when we're gonna get his armor. You know, his cleaned up armor look from the Mandalorian. That's really the one I want. Dr. Steinman is looking forward to the Muzco Morbius for a companion piece to Blade. Yeah, it looked pretty good. They announced that Spider-Man 2099 figure this week. Though honestly, I don't know, that didn't impress me that much. The Firefly for GI Joe. I mean, granted, we only saw a close up of his face, but that interests me a lot. So I'm looking forward to seeing more on that one. Um, Actually, probably out of the Mezco reveals this week, that was the one that interests me the most. Was the Firefly. The Godzilla, like that what was it, 18-inch Godzilla that they showed off yesterday. That is interesting looking, though I imagine it's going to have a very, very hefty price tag. So Armor Boba Fett will probably be. I would agree. Lord Vanguard's in the house. Thanks, brother. I think it's about time for us to get some character figures from the best animator in history, Ray Harryhausen, Clash of the Titans, and Bad. We've gotten, haven't we gotten Clash of the Titan figures before? I can't think of who did them, but I feel like we've gotten. Maybe not. Maybe it was from the newer movie. I don't remember. But yeah, those would be cool. Benny Boom Boom, what's up, man? Green Hornet and Kato. You know what? Dick Tracy. That was actually kind of an interesting announcement from Mezco this week as well. You saying Green Hornet made me think of Dick Tracy, but yeah, that one was kind of interesting. Clay, what about that Blitzway Voltron? It looks impressive. I've never been a super huge Voltron fan, and I'm sure that's it's said to be around $700 price tag, so I probably will not be getting that one. But from the images we saw, it definitely looks nice. I mean, it seems like we get every year or so somebody new gives us the Voltron lions and Voltron. So it's like how many different times can you get the same character over and over again? Boss fight Titans. I feel Star Wars Deluxe are overpriced. CG, what they're $30. I mean, the 6-inch figures are going for around 23. So, I mean, yeah, I certainly wouldn't mind them being cheaper, but I don't think 30 is out of the realm. Some of them are 25, aren't they? I lose track. The prices fluctuate so much these days. Yeah, Mezco's a small company, so like with most small companies, I mean, any small company, whether it's Super Seven, Mezco, um, Boss Fight Studio, whatever, a small company like that, you almost have to bake in that whatever release date they give you is not going to be accurate, that it's going to be longer, because and the biggest problem is that they don't get any. The factories, they're always the last at the factories. All the companies end up generally using a lot of the same factories, and so, or even if it's not a toy company, but because these small companies are ordering in such small numbers, the factory really, they're just barely a blip on the factory's radar. So they're going to give the people that are having larger numbers of stuff, which means they're spending more money at the factory, the presidents, and so that's often why you see those types of delays with those small companies. And there's other issues that go into it, but the simplified explanation is essentially they just don't get the precedence that the larger companies do. Yeah, I guess that one hasn't shipped either, huh? I don't follow every single like when every single Mezco figure releases, so I'm not really up on what's late and what's not. I mean, I have the Batman, the '89 Batman figure on pre-order myself, so I know that one hasn't shipped, and we're all still waiting on that one. But I only get a few Mezco figures here and there, so Mario says they give us release dates and then just say you'll get it when you get it. Well, I think Mezco's kind of wised up because usually they don't. Mezco does not give you a specific release date. They just say it's like going to come out in the third quarter of this of such and such year. So I think Mezco is kind of wised up on giving out specific release dates usually. But but yeah, I mean, like I said, Super Seven, all those small companies. I just when I pre-order something like those GI Joe Ultimate figures, you know, I'll be lucky if I get my hands on those within a year, and very easily could take longer. So I just kind of bake that in, knowing that it's going to be a while before I get my hands on those figures. And I'll be honest with you, and I don't even I wouldn't consider that I do a ton and ton of pre-orders. I often just wait until something's out and then I buy it. I don't, but a lot of times I'll forget that I had something on pre-order, and then like I'll get that notification, this item's coming in stock, and I'm like, oh man, I forgot all about that one. And I know there are a lot of people who pre-order a lot more stuff than I do. I don't know how they keep track of it all. Highlander. So there's a company doing Highlander figures. They're 5-inch figures. I forget the name. It's a small company, but there is a company out there that is doing Highlander figures. What's a toy line based on a movie that I would like to see? I would love seeing Alita Battle Angel figures. Didn't they've done some of those figures? Didn't they? Didn't like Hot Toys do a figure of her? We got Beetlejuice. There's a Beetlejuice figure coming from loyal subjects for the BST line. For me, a movie that I'd like to see figures. I don't know. Most seems like most movies get figures that I would like to see figures of get figures. There's actually a lot of movies that get figures that I end up scratching my head thinking, why are they doing action figures from that movie? But off the top of my head, I can't really think of something that I don't know, isn't already getting figures. I mean, even like movies like Princess Bride, I'm kind of like surprised that somebody, McFarlane Toys is doing Princess Bride figures, especially since I think NECA did Princess Bride figures previously. So uh, that's like a really an odd choice for them to take on. Sorry, I'm looking up something here real quick. So one of the cool announcements that I did like this week was from Mattel for their WWE line with these Hollywood figures. Now, not all of them. Like, I really don't have interest in John Cena from Fast and the Furious or The Rock from Hobbs and Shaw, but like this Roddy Piper figure, which I was able to grab one before it sold out on Saturday, so I was pretty happy. But we're getting Nada from They Live. So these are figures. These are WWE figures, but they're taking WWE wrestlers who become actors and making figures based on the characters they've portrayed in the movies. So I got that one. These went up. This is the first wave that went up this morning, or went up for pre-order this past Saturday morning on Walmart's website. These are Walmart exclusives. And then the second wave, let me get through the individual. So these are the individual images for the first wave. And the glasses are removable. My mouse quit working. Not sure. Now maybe I don't have the wave 2 images here. But these Flash Gordon movie figures that NECA announced this week, I'm gonna try and pick these up. I like these. These are cool. Again, Walmart exclusives. But this one, so this is the second wave. So again, Rock from Scorpion King, I don't really care about. Another Hobbs and Shaw figure I don't really care about. But this one, Bigfoot from the Bionic Man, played by Andre the Giant. This is one I definitely want to get. So this is really. I wish they could do a Bionic Man, an actual Bionic Man to go along with it. But to me, this one is super cool. If we could just get the Bionic Man and then that robot that he would fight sometimes, that rolling robot that he would fight sometimes, I'd be a happy camper. So not a movie, but TV series. Some cool Bionic Man figures would be cool. But I'm glad to see that we're at least getting Bigfoot Andre the Giant. Kyle says, "Wow, they're making Jacob. I need to collect the family now." I've not seen that movie yet, so I won't see it until it comes out on home release. So speaking of movies, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but who did see? Again, I haven't seen it, so I don't know. But who did go and see the GI Joe Snake Eyes movie this weekend? Did anybody go see that? And if you did, what were your thoughts? I heard things. I heard was probably the biggest problem I heard with it is the like the shaky camera work. What'd you think, Kyle? Did you like it? Ivan did not see it. Snake Eyes was okay, but it's not Snake Eyes. And that was kind of my feeling going in, which is why I'm going to wait till it comes out on home release and then I'll watch it. Prophet says it was okay. So, Michael liked it. Was it better than the last two G.I. Joe movies? The same? And, like, I heard, like, the acting overall was pretty good, which I'm glad to hear. Again, I heard a lot from a number of people saying like the with a lot of the action scenes, it was hard to make out what was going on because of the shaky camera work. But then, for me, it was always about, is this really GI Joe or is it just a ninja movie that they threw the GI Joe character's name on? Bean says, man, and that's kind of like if it didn't have the GI Joe and Snake Eyes name on it, would it be a movie that you would want to go see? Kind of like Rise of Cobra way more, but that's because it's one of my favorite movies. Really, one of your favorites? I thought Rise of Cobra was better than the first GI Joe movie, um, but I definitely wouldn't put it out there as a favorite movie. It had some good things and it had some bad things. I mean, I feel like they could have built off that movie and done some good things, whereas it seems like they just kind of tossed it aside and are starting over. But I didn't think it was a great movie, but definitely better than the first GI Joe movie. Sorry, we've already talked about Masters, which I liked it. Others, some didn't, some did, but yeah, we already talked. We spent most of this video we were talking about Masters. I think retaliation more because you can tell the filmmakers respected GI Joe more. I'm not sure how Vanilla Ice got into the conversation. Let's see. Ivan says he liked the old movie. I Well, out of those three movies, I've only seen Space Jam 2. That old movie looked really weird. Like that feels. I feel like that's a movie that would like freak me out, give me nightmares. I'm not a huge horror like fan. Like I saw that one scene, like it was a clip like where the lady, I guess, ended up getting pregnant, and because if you're not familiar with old the concept, these people end up on this island, and I guess the aging process is sped up on this island for some reason, and so everybody's like aging much faster, and so some lady I guess is pregnant, and I guess because of the speed age process and speeding up, the pregnancy comes much faster or something. It just I looked like a scene that was going to totally freak me out. Ben from the bunker. Space Jam had a lot of old pop culture references that went over my daughter's head. I we talked about this in the last live stream. I thought I liked Space Jam 2 better than I thought I was going to. I didn't think it was better than the first one, and I did. While I didn't hate it, I felt like a lot of the movie was just like how many kind of things can we cram into it? Like the DC characters, and it was cool seeing the Justice League characters pop up in it, and You know, Hanna Barbera characters and stuff pop into it, but it's at one point I felt like they were trying to kind of like make that the whole movie. Like, how many various different Warner Brother characters can you find in the audience? And I really feel like Don Cheadle was really the star of that movie. He was really the one that kind of carried that movie. I was watching the Mass Device arc last night, and a lot of the elements of Rise of Cobra are there. Oh wait, you're right. You're right. I did. I you're right. I like Retaliation better than Rise of Cobra. To me, I don't know. The first one just like things like the those suits, which I guess you could argue is not totally out of line with GI Joe, but I don't know. I just didn't think it worked well. At least in the second movie, like you know, The Rock was The Rock and Bruce Willis was Bruce Willis. You know, they kind of play the same characters in every movie that they're in, and that didn't bother me too much. But I think probably what I like more about the second movie is I thought they were more respectful to the Cobra characters a bit more than they were in the first movie. Baroness was hot though on the well, yeah, she was in Scarlet. I probably liked the Joe. I will say I probably did like the Joes better in the first movie than I did than the second movie. They were more overall more Joe like, and I didn't like that they killed Duke off at the beginning of the second movie. I thought that was lame. Also, Snake Eyes is really a film about Storm Shadow. Nothing about Snake Eyes' character in the film. We won't get to see him. I thought he wore his costume in the movie. He doesn't wear the costume. I mean, we got a figure of him with the costume. He doesn't have that in the movie. The new Baroness is good. That's good to hear. Pedro saw Old this week. I think Old won the box office this week. I think it came in number one. So it sounds like more people did go see Old than they did GI Joe this week. I've seen people finding them at Target stores, but I have not personally found them myself. I haven't actually been out to look recently, but where's the costume in the last scene? Gotcha. See, I'd really like to know, and don't spoil it. But what I guess I'm curious is why is he wearing a costume like that at all when his face obviously has not been screwed up, unless maybe that happens at the beginning. But I think somebody said that we don't find out why he can't talk or whatever. So if his face wasn't messed up, if he hasn't lost the ability to speak, why is he wearing a mask? Why is he wearing an all black costume? I mean, there was kind of a reason for why he wore that in the original GI Joe stories. So Philip says the Baroness figure doesn't look so good like the actor. And that would make sense to me, to be absolutely honest. Again, why would he wear a mask at this point if he's not? Well, I mean, I guess Storm Shadow. If I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously Storm Shadow is a ninja. I mean, I guess Snake Eyes is too, but I guess to me, again, we've talked about this before, but to me, Snake Eyes to me isn't a ninja. He's somebody who's had training in the arts of being a ninja, but he's not really a ninja per se. He's a military guy who's got some ninja skills. Is how I always viewed the character. Phil says not a bad movie. Are you talking about Snake Eyes? I couldn't tell you, Jerry. It probably varies from area to area. Darkseid says, I heard the acting in the movie was actually one of the stronger selling points of the movie. Like I don't even remember where I saw it, but somebody had written an article in one of the entertainment news websites, saying that like the Henry should be considered for the next James Bond. So it's a bad Snake Eyes movie, but a good just ninja ass kicking movie. Is that what you're saying? Which is kind of it's what I was kind of figuring it would end up being like. Well, yeah, that's why the superheroes always take their masks off in the movies because they want, even on like the movie posters. Generally, you go look at like all the Avengers movie posters, and the actors are always very rarely have their masks on. It's because they want to have their faces. I saw it at home, but yeah, I saw Black Widow. I didn't think it was like fantastic movie, but I didn't think it was horrible movie either. Cole says the Snake Eyes actor is a hottie. If you care nothing about Snake Eyes or G.I. Joe, it's still a rough action movie. The camera cuts are awful. 7 out of 10. My wife said something very similar to that when we watched. She was like, "Why didn't this movie come out after Civil War?" I'm like, I don't know. But to me, I mean, the fact, as long as you realize that it's taking place in the middle, I mean, to me, it's not hard to, you know, I mean, it's not like they haven't done a timepiece like that. We saw, they did Captain America, First Avenger. It's not like they started the MCU in World War II, so it was kind of a go back in time and see how things played out. Same thing with the Captain Marvel movie. So I've kind of gotten used to that. Actually, to be absolutely honest, I even in the comics, I'm not. I don't know if they've ever said why. I forget if they've said why they call him Snake Eyes. I hope it's not because he's some kind of gambler. He always rolls the Snake Eyes. Which was better? Oh, since I haven't seen Snake Eyes, I can't answer that. I liked Mortal Kombat. I still like the original better, but I thought that wasn't too bad of a movie. Scarlet wasn't needed. I'm sure. Well, I'm sure they put those characters in. And again, Scarlet and Snake Eyes having, knowing each other this early in Snake Eyes' life to me just seems off. But I'm sure they threw Scarlet, I'm sure they threw in Cobra and Joe characters like Scarlet and Baroness just to have some connection to actual GI Joe. Line from Mortal Kombat: "Go to Gary, Indiana. You'll be safe there." As somebody from Gary, that is the first time anyone uttered those words. I thought the Scarlet figure looked pretty good. I like that head sculpt on the movie Scarlet movie. In fact, I like the head sculpt on the movie Scarlet figure better than I do the comic book one. I was like, I'm thinking about, maybe taking the head sculpt from the movie figure and putting it on the comic book body. I just realized that it's after 8 o'clock, so I think we're actually going to. Where's the? Well, we only even know about that because Hasbro accidentally leaked that out themselves. I don't know when they're going to announce it. They're probably going to wait a little bit, let that probably wait till the Galactus gets fully funded before they announce another one. So maybe August we'll get the official announcement and details, but I don't know for sure. Thanks, man. I need it. In fact, so next week there will not be a live stream. I am taking some time off next week, not this week, but next week I'm going to be taking some time off, so I'm not going to be here on Sunday to shoot a live stream. So no live stream next Sunday. May even that week I may even be kind of light on news videos. Um, in fact, I might not even do a news video that week. Not this coming week, but the following week. So I am going to be taking some time off. So, but I should be back the following Sunday. Um, and then, if there's like major breaking news during that week, then I might throw up some quick news video, using my cell phone or something. But don't expect a lot of videos from me that week. And depending on how much news there, definitely, you'll probably see me on Wednesday with a news video after the Hasbro live stream. And then depending on how much new news we get this week, will depend on how many news videos I do this week. But definitely no live stream this coming Sunday, and then very light, if anything, that following week, and then things will be back to normal the following Sunday. So, but I am going to wrap it up here, guys. As always, I appreciate you guys chiming in. Even if you didn't like Masters of the Universe Revelation, again, I certainly can respect you not liking something. And in fact, I like discuss. If everybody likes something, it wouldn't make for very interesting discussion. So I again, as far as people who were bashing on it before they even saw it, those people, kind of hard to give a lot of stock in those opinions. But definitely, if you watched it and you didn't like it, then I think that's perfectly fine. Nobody, you shouldn't have to like something you don't, you honestly truly don't like for whatever the reason. But I did like it. I thought it was pretty good. I'm looking forward to part two. I'm looking forward to the toys, um, and that's pretty much all I have to say on that. But again, thanks for everybody who tuned in tonight. And here's looking to for some interesting Marvel Legend news this week, and who knows what else. And as always, guys, stay safe out there. And of course, got to hit my little subscribe if you haven't already. Though I always figure if you're watching a live stream of me, you're probably already a subscriber. But if you haven't already, if you haven't by chance, please do subscribe and hit the bell notification. As I said, stay safe out there, guys, and until next time, I'll catch you later.